It's funny. It's Firefly, right? And it goes with me everywhere, like wherever I go. And at the beginning, it was cool, right? Because it transcribes everything and everything. But now they're trying to get me to subscribe, and I really don't need it because whenever I set up Zoom meetings, if I set them up and I want to record them or transcribe them, I can just set up the meeting that way on Zoom, right? I can just ask it to transcribe it, and it's already included in what I pay, right? So
Yeah,
anyway, so
it's
that's
like
great.
it's redundant. And actually, I use Google Meet to record all my podcast episodes, and Google is coming out with their own recording
Mhm.
feature really soon. I think it's rolled out to a few people already. And I use my AI note taker called Scribe,
Mhm.
and I'm an investor in that company. So
Okay.
it has some more advanced functionality than just simply taking notes. It's and I kind of rely on it for a lot of other different things. But the basic functionalities, I think for most people, could probably be served with just like the basic Zoom function or the basic Google Meet function. And
Yeah.
that takes care of like 80% of what you need to accomplish if you're just recording stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But anyway, thanks
Yeah.
for coming on the show.
Yeah.
This is a super informal. I'm not like doing this to impress millions of people day in and day out.
Okay.
I just like having people who I've met in person who I think are cool. And at this point, most of the people I've had on my show are people who I've invested with as well
Okay.
in all the various things that I do. So that's in real estate. I had my friend from BAM Capital on just 2 days ago, and they're a big multifamily real estate investment fund. And then I had my buddy on who created the podcasting software I use to do my podcast. He was on. And then I'll have Paul Allen on next week. He's the guy that created the note taking app that I'm using. So,
Nice. Nice.
in, I guess, more by default than anything else, the people I spend the most time with are the people that I've invested in.
That's cool. Yeah,
That's
no, thank
probably
you
a
for
good, yeah.
yeah. No, it's cool. This is awesome. In fact, it's funny, it's and I don't even know, I think it's called the reticular activating system, right? That we all have. I think what you triggered it, right? You said, "Hey, would you be on this podcast?" And then I'm reading this book from this guy that it has all sorts of businesses related to raising money for real estate developments and renovations and right value add type deals. Anyways, I'm reading his book, and just I don't know, it was just recently I come across, probably would have never even noticed it, right? He mentions, he says like an action, right, an action list of items that you should be doing, and he mentions that that I should be looking for all the podcasts that are out there, and he tells you exactly how to do it, make a list, and then reach out to them, right? But podcasts that are related to real estate, investment and that type of thing. Anyways, my point is that because of your invitation, it led to me actually recognizing that, and now we should be on our, I'll have somebody help me out with this, but yeah, we're going to start doing this. We're going to start going on any podcast that we can get on that is related to real estate investing and real estate, syndications and stuff like that to promote the project, right? So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. And, this is sort of self serving as well for me because since I'm invested in the project, I want it to do well, of course. And
Of course.
so I'm going to use all the tools at my disposal to help make that happen. And it's a bit of a quid pro quo. You come on as my guest, we talk about some cool stuff, we both get some value out of it. So I think it's a good win-win.
I agree.
So the two things that I typically ask all the people I've had on so far are two really basic questions. Basic on the surface, I guess, but for the people that I've asked this to, they really do try their best to be intentional about how they answer. And so there's no hard and fast rule here about how you want to come up with the answers to these questions. But the first one, I'm going to give them to you both first, and then you can answer them one at a time or whatever you want, honestly.
Sure.
First question, though, is what is your vision for 2025? And I don't require that to be anything specific. It could be just related to the Lincoln project. It could be your business overall. It could be
Mhm.
personal, health, relationship, whatever.
Sure.
And then, there's the what of the vision. And then the second question is, how are you going to execute that vision into reality? And that's my favorite question to ask people, because the name of my show is Vision with Execution is Reality. And everybody's got a different way of getting things done. But we all have to start with an image of it or a vision of it in our mind. Otherwise, there's no chance that it's going to happen. So Thomas Edison was the one who said vision without execution is hallucination. And as businessmen, as guys who need to support their employees or their family, we need to be executing our visions into realities so that we can help provide for the people who rely on us at the very least. So
Right.
I'm going to turn the time over to you, and I'm curious to see how this goes, see what your answers are.
Yeah. So let's start with the first one. So you said, so you wanted to know what my vision is for 2025, or my goals or vision would be the goal, right? The goals.
Yeah, the vision is kind of what drives the goals, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you want to start with what the vision is and then talk about what the goals are, I think those are two very important complementary topics. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And in the interest of time, what I'll do is I'll try to narrow that question down to just maybe the Lincoln Hotel, right? The Lincoln project that we're working on together.
Yep.
Maybe some just a couple of minor some small things personally, right? That visions that I have. So I'll start with the personal vision for me personally. In 2025, looking to be about 150 55 pounds, right? Strong, healthy, great cardio, right? I'm working on this, and I'm very passionate about this, right? This morning I went to the gym at 4 in the morning, and looking to be able to do that at least at least 3 times a week, and then the other days I can do them. I can go to the gym in the afternoons or evenings. But so yeah, looking to be in an amazing shape. So that would be one. Second one for me, and it relates back to the Lincoln Hotel and kind of the movement and the vision behind that project and what it stands for. So by 2025, I'd like to be I will be engaged, right? We have a few prospects, so looking to get married and have a family. So
I love
that's
how you phrase that. You've got a few prospects. It's like a business deal for you. That's funny.
well, it's you were just talking about vision. I mean, like the whole premise behind your show, right? Is vision without execution is hallucination, right? And so I apply that to everything, right? And so I'm very meticulous, right? Because I can't just hope and wish things happen. So actually, I've given this some real thought, right? Because this is important to me, right? Because even if I became not even if, when I become incredibly successful, right? Just you know, incredibly successful, right? I don't want to go into numbers for how I define that, but if I don't have a wife and a loving family, then what's it all for, right? What's it all for?
Yeah, good point.
So because of that, because it's so important to me, I've decided to take it serious and actually, implement this execution. And I know it's funny that you say, it sounds like it's a business plan or something, right? Because it really, to some degree, could be considered that, right? I actually have methodically looked into this and figured out, how I'm going to improve my chances of finding somebody that, what I mean, that I could start a family with. So not leaving it to chance. So
Well, I used the same approach myself when I was in my early 20s. My mission president told me the first thing I should do when I got home was try and find a wife.
mhm,
And I took that seriously. I dated the crap out of all the girls I could find. I was dating four different girls all at the same time. And I
yeah,
proposed to one of them before I
mhm,
proposed to my current wife, just because and then this sounds very analytical and unemotional, and I know that that's what it's going to sound like. But if your goal is to get married, you have to set yourself up for success
Mhm.
by dating a lot of women and seeing what you do like and what you don't, and what you're willing to give up and sacrifice to become married, because that will be the case. Everyone, whoever gets married, has to give up something to be able to accommodate living with someone else for the rest of your life. And if you aren't willing to give up some things, then you're hurting your chances of being married for the long term. And I assume that's your goal, is to get married to one person and be with that person for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, sounds like we took a similar approach. Or
Yes.
I'm taking it. Yeah. So, and then moving on to the business side of it, right? A lot of goals there, but I'm just going to focus in on the Lincoln Hotel. So, in 2025, the vision, right, for 2025, and the vision and the goal, right? Because in some way they overlap, because, like you said, one leads to the other. Would be that by the end of 2025, during 2025, and by the end of 2025, we have raised several $1 million for the Lincoln Hotel to make the Lincoln Hotel a reality. Entitlements have gone smoothly, and we're shovel ready by the beginning of 2026. Meaning we're ready to start going vertical, right, with the hotel. And yeah, and it's we've I can see us getting tons of media attention for this project because it's so significant. Like I we'll get into that, I guess, a little bit later on, but I can't believe that in the birthplace of Abraham Lincoln, with all the hundreds of thousands of people that visit this place, with all the federal funding that they receive, with everything that's going on, they still don't have a hotel in the birthplace of Abraham Lincoln, right? Despite all of its significance, right? So anyway, so I see us, potentially, being on, mainstream, potentially even mainstream, news. Not that that's, the that would just be kind of it's the most difficult potentially, right, to get them to pay attention to you. But really, there's some more significant platforms, more valuable or meaningful platforms that I could see us, stages that I could see us being on, discussing this project and telling the world about it, and raising the money and doing an amazing job with this project. But in 2025, it'll be raising the money, right? Because we won't be going vertical in 2025. Um, yeah, and then just and establishing and developing just all kinds of great relationships through this process, right? I mean, we're going to meet all sorts of cool people, and you and I, right? Because you'll be meeting some of these people yourself, and I think it's going to be fascinating. We're going to meet people from all over the country, and maybe even some people outside the country, right? That love what we're doing, and they want to know who we are. Why are we doing this? Like, why hasn't anybody done this before? And yeah, it's going to be a massive success. So.
Yeah, I love the positive affirmation statements that you have going on. And before I ever studied mindset and affirmations and putting things out into the universe, I
Mhm.
actually used to think that people who talk that way were crazy and just like exaggerating, or and just simply lying to my
Mhm.
face when you talk like that. But now the more I've learned about intentionally stating things out loud in a positive way makes them more likely to happen in reality.
Mhm.
And this is true in everything. And I don't know if you ever watched the documentary about Michael Jordan. I think
Mhm.
it was on Netflix. It's like a 6-part series or something, but about all the championships, but mostly how about how Jordan was impactful for the Bulls during his time there. And one of the things he said, or one of the things they brought out in the documentary, and Michael himself didn't really comment on it, but
Mhm.
in every game he played, he was known for what they would call trash talking.
Mhm.
But you know what he was actually doing? He was just stating out loud what he was going to do in the game,
Mhm.
because he would say, I'm going to score on you right now.
Yeah.
Not in an antagonistic way or anything. It was just, that's a statement of fact for him, and he's going to go make it happen. And that's something that some psychologists have labeled controlling the controllables.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of athletes now, and a lot of mental health coaches and mental performance coaches that are really getting on this bandwagon of talking internally to yourself in a positive way and rewiring your brain to think that way by default.
Yeah.
And it's having huge impacts on people's success in anything that they apply it to.
Yeah.
And I'm working on doing that better myself.
Yeah.
Because it is a very intentional thing that you've got to do, and you've got to be consistent with it. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go make $1 million," and then never think about it again. You have to have that burned into your brain, thinking about it. And Think and Grow Rich, a lot of people hate on that book, and I don't. I think most of the principles in there are just spot on. People just didn't realize how spot on they were, I think, at
Mm-hmm.
the time. So, all of which is to say, I definitely wanted to give you an opportunity to state some of your positive intentions out loud here on this show,
Yeah. Thank
and I think you did a great job doing that.
thank you. And for what it's worth, like all that stuff you just said, I agree with everything completely, and I agree with you completely on how powerful that is and how significant that is. I've read books on the subject. I've yeah, listened to so many things on YouTube about it. It's fascinating. It's amazing what that self-talk, right, can do for you, not just in all sorts of ways. I mean, it affects it could affect every aspect of your life, your relationship with the world, your relationship with those around you, your relationship, with your body, right? Like it actually, you can actually, there's studies that they've done where you can actually, through your right self-talk and vocalizing, certain thoughts or ideas or concepts or whatever, you can affect your like biology, right? You're not going to fix a broken arm, but you can affect like your how healthy you are, how strong your immune system is, all kinds of interesting things. Yeah, I love this stuff. I love and I apply it, right? So as you can see, I mean, I corrected myself a couple times, right? Because I don't like speaking as if it's something I absolutely truly have want and it's I visualized it and it's there is no if there is it's just a matter of when, right? And I've proven it over and over in my life. You know what I mean? When I set my mind to something, it's just a matter of when. If I truly want it and I'm passionate about it, that's life. That's passion. That's you just stick with it. You just hold on to that, right? And mountains will move.
Yeah, and I had a really interesting experience just yesterday. Um, Somebody had sued me about 5 months ago, and our court date was scheduled for next week.
Mhm.
And so I had to send him evidence I was planning on using in the court case and sent it to him. And he replied back. This was yesterday, mind you.
Mhm.
He replied back and said, "What is this even for? I thought we'd canceled the lawsuit because we're liquidating our company right now." And
Mhm.
I'd been praying for the lawsuit to be dismissed for the last 5 months. And not only was it dismissed, it was just in like this really miraculous sort of way I never
Mhm.
could have predicted, never visualized the way that it actually played out.
Yeah.
But I'd been expecting the outcome of being dismissed. And that's exactly what happened,
Yeah.
with very little pain other than the emotional pain I put on myself from worrying about it. Because
Right.
I do that. I have anxiety. I don't take medications for it. I know some people will, but personally, I feel like the anxiety that I go through is very much self inflicted.
Hmm.
And I think that's true for everyone,
Hmm.
no matter who you are. And the point of being on this earth is recognizing that there's a higher power, that if you know how to tap into that higher power, whether you call him God or just a higher power in general or the universe, I really don't care how people label that, but you have to admit that there is something.
Hmm.
So that my high power happens to be God, and he showed me that he cares about me a lot yesterday. So that was
Yes.
cool.
That is cool. That's amazing. Yeah.
So this has been uh, great. This has been nice and efficient, and you stated your visions and some of the ways you're going to execute them into reality. And funny enough, the one thing about you wanting to get married, I love that. I'm never going to forget that. I don't think for the rest of my life. And I will be at your wedding when that
Yeah,
happens.
you will be invited. Absolutely. And by the way, I don't know if you wanted me to go into the actual manner in which we're going to execute, maybe some of the things that we're doing with the Lincoln. I know I mentioned, I alluded to being on different platforms and podcasts and all that, but there's a lot more to it, right? And I don't know if you want to go into that, but we're building up our team, and because right, everything requires time and energy, right? Like if you're gonna try to accomplish something, right, in a business sense, or even if it's not business sense, right, time and energy, right? Even finding my wife, it's gonna take time and energy. But the idea is that we're building up our team. We just had a new guy that just joined us, and we're looking at hiring one other person, and then we're also looking at bringing in some interns. And it's just there's only so many hours in the day, and initially, right, like I still have to do everything. I have to train everybody, but eventually the idea is that we can grow this, and I think we can get a lot of interns. We can get a lot of people that would volunteer to help us with this project, right? Just because of how significant it is. And one thing I didn't mention before, maybe I did. So one of the things we're looking at doing, I still don't know exactly what it's going to be, but whether it's going to be a big giant piece of limestone or marble, or something that's copper, right? But something beautiful, that's something that looks good. We're looking to honor everybody who invests in the project, right? We're looking at engraving, right? Making them part of that, the history of that hotel. They made that possible, right? So that includes general partners and all investors. I think it's pretty cool, right? Because it'll be something beautiful that will, kind of like you see with some of the national monuments, right, in DC. Um, Now they have names engraved for a different reason, right? Like you have the 9/11 monument, right? And they have the casualties, right? The individuals that lost their lives, right, during the terrorist attack, right?
Right, right, yeah.
Uh, but in this case, with the hotel, it's going to be more kind of honoring these individuals that were part of the project that made it possible. So I think it's also, yeah, it's going to be cool. So we're going to have, so these interns, right? I brought that up because, the interns, right? If they stuck with us for long enough, right? We'll have to think of what that threshold is. They didn't just come in for a week, but if they really stuck with the project for a while and helped us make it a reality, they would also be, um, their name would also be part of history.
Well, since we're on the topic of interns, that I've used a lot of interns through the years for my various companies, and I remember you and I were chatting about getting interns
Mhm.
last month.
Yes.
And if there are any interns or potential interns listening to the show, what do you want them to know about coming onto the project?
What do I want them to know? I want them to know that, I think this is gonna be an amazing project, right? It's significant, it's meaningful, it's meaningful in a way that goes beyond just me or beyond just the hotel, right? As you know, Adam, one of the things that we're looking to do with the project is really to have that kind of be a launch pad, if you will, right? To be able to do other projects and to be able to promote, right, family values, right? I think that's important, right? With everything that's going on um, globally and in the nation, right? I think it's important to remind people just how important families are, right? There's a gentleman named Will Durant, wrote a lot of books on history, and his perspective on history and the way he's written these books is very unique, I think, because he really kind of gets into the nitty gritty of what makes societies work and what makes empires become empires and what leads to empires collapsing, and families, right, is at the core of it all, right? And it's interesting because, and I've not read all his books, right? So I'm sure there's all kinds of beautiful gems, right, that he's written about that I'm not going to touch on right here, but one of the things that he talks about is that how important families are to a nation um, that's powerful, that's thriving, right? That's not collapsing. So I think so. One of the things that we're looking at doing with this project is through our website and our social media content is also trying to promote families, right, and family values, and some people don't want to have families, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with right. But of course, when that becomes um, that becomes a significant percentage of the population, right? Then we have a problem as a whole, right? And
So
but
what I'm hearing you say then is anyone who is pro family
Mhm,
and pro economy and democracy
mhm,
and family values,
mhm.
they would be an excellent candidate to come and help with the Lincoln Hotel project.
Yeah.
Not only the Lincoln Hotel project, but the other ones that you're planning on doing in the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah.
And I would just say being around BYU, which is where you're in Provo, you're set up in a place where there's a lot of people who care about those things. And you obviously know that already. So, BYU students, if you're listening, you're a great candidate for as an intern for this project. So,
and and it could lead to, by the way, and that's the real meaningful part of it, right? But this could potentially lead to a full-time job, right? Because as we grow, we're going to need full-time people here, right? We're going to need people that are going to spend 40 hours a week that are going to get paid well to work with us, right? So there is that potential as well for this to lead to a career in real estate, commercial real estate development. So
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I know being an intern unpaid sometimes can be a grind if there's not a payoff in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a great insert there. So we're gonna wrap up the Vision with Execution show is the name of the show. My name's Adam Torkelson. I've had Ramon Somoza on. I met Ramon through my dad, and it was a very random connection. My dad was sitting out on a street corner in Provo offering to write poems for people. As a lot of my listeners know, my dad is a former circus clown, very odd individual by any stretch of the imagination. But he connects me with some cool people like Ramon.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for being on my show.
Sure. Absolutely.
And
Thank you for having me.
we'll get this published and edited for clarity and whatnot.